Hello again, Struck. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Torchlight 3 that has been made after the game launched. And this one I decided to call the Melee Adventurer Sharpshooter Electrode build. And it's a very fun one, and if you wanna skip ahead to certain segments of the video, you can use the timestamps that are in the description or click on the chapters that are in the timeline at the bottom of the video. So it's a fun build. But it's also super good DPS. Contrary to my expectations, the DPS is great, and I actually have pretty shitty gear, although my weapon is okay. My weapon is decent, and I decided to try bow basic attacks build, but I didn't like it as much. And after one map, I decided, alright, let's try with the Mace. Let's see how a Mace build goes. And it turned out much better than I expected, especially the number of procs. Considering I only have 24% chance to shock, the number of procs is pretty high. And yeah, I hope you love it. I hope you get satisfied with this. In a moment you would see a little bit of footage with the bow, so you can see the difference. But look at how quickly he's melting bosses. I know this is mostly due to the big relic skill. The 1000-volt burst, I know that's the main reason why those bosses are getting melted so quickly, but that is on ridiculous on a level 60 Mapworks portal. Yeah, if you're doing the Fazier, it's gonna be much different and much less DPS, but it's still pretty decent. And here it is with the bow. I've decided to include 2 skill trees with the bow. The one I used and the one that I prefer, which would be number 1, and I decided to include only one skill tree, skill point allocation with the melee version. I do consider the melee as the better DPS and the proper one, the one I like using, because you get more survivability with fighter spirit, and I actually used Curse of PP instead of explosive arrow with the melee one, so it turned out better. But again, it's up to you. I didn't have good gear for the bow build or the other one. And here we are at the segment where I'm going to talk about how to spend the skill points, what skills to take and what skills to level up to which tier. First of all, I will show you the Mace basic attack version, and then I will show you the bow's basic attack version, or more like talk about how to spend the points for the bow's basic attack version, because I didn't make a screenshot, but you would be seeing on your screen a screenshot of how I suggest how I tested it. There's gonna be 2 ways of how to do bows, but first let's talk about maces. First of all, for the maces, I'm only taking reload for the tier 3 bonus, and keep in mind, before we go further, I've got Musketeer hat giving me +2 precision, and I've slotted in the Legendarium Musketeer rope for +2 adventurer skills. And this means, yeah, I've got 1 point, but this is actually tier 1 at level 3. Then here we've got this maxed out for the basic attack synergy with the triple zap. We've got Localized Storm maxed out to strike 2 enemies each time and cost less. We've got Shocking Display, which is pretty great, and we've got Tinkling Sensation, which recently someone yesterday told me that this actually adds 3 seconds to the shock duration. So not only does it give you chance to shock, it also lets you have an increased duration. So if you have a weapon with 1 second or 1.5 seconds duration, with let's say 50% chance to shock, this will add on top of that chance to shock, and it will also increase the duration from 1 to 4 or from 1.5 to 4.5 seconds. But even if you don't have a chance to shock weapon, this is still 3 seconds duration, and it still gives you chance to shock, and it's still good. And then here comes the bread and butter of proc monster builds, and this one is one such as well. Lightning Strike. Whenever we hit a shocked enemy, we have a chance to call a lightning that strikes them, and this has no cooldown, so it's amazing. Then we have Energizer, which stacks very well with this energy generation to keep generating energy quickly, so we can use Localized Storm and then eventually 1000-volt burst. And 1000-volt burst is tier 3. It's such an amazing thing to have. 8-second duration for 55 weapon damage per second. It's amazing because there are just so many of those, and you just clear out bunches of enemies. You can burst bosses with this. It's amazing. Now here's what I also like to take. Of course, Voyo Shasta, I always take Voyo Shasta, and in most builds I would always take at least tier 1 Sacrifice to Goose. Some people are reporting that Sacrifice to Goose's damage increase doesn't work for all abilities. I've not tested whether it works for all, for everything that does damage for us on this. I've tested it. Scout's Bones does more damage. The Lightning Strike does more damage. Basic attacks do more damage, so Sacrifice to Goose for this build is safe. I'm gonna test it later with some of the other precision skills to see if it really is broken or people are just misinforming others, but I will confirm it for you eventually and let you know. So we want 1 point into Ghost Visage to get the additional charge. We want to max out Scout's Bone so we can fire 3 bows of rats, and with the Infectious Shooter that's pretty good synergy. Then PP is amazing because it makes the enemies do less damage. But you can also have it pulsating and reapplying with the tier 3 bonus, which means it stacks up to 2 times. It stacks up to 2 times, and the adventurer bonus says it stacks up to 2 times, and we don't use a precision skill, but I think this also stacks it 2 times. Let's just check it. Yeah, it stacks 2 times, which means the enemies are gonna do 50% less damage. On top of that you get Fighter Spirit, which makes you take less damage. So they're gonna be doing 50% of their damage, which is reduced by 50% from your damage reduction, which makes it 25% damage. And then if you have good resistances, unlike me with my shitty level 40 items, you would have some very good survivability with this build. And I think it's amazing synergy for melee basic attack sharpshooter build to have Curse of PP. It's just the obvious choice. This one with the sharpshooter skill cooldowns, it's optional. I like it. I like having shorter cooldown on PP, Shasta and Scout's Bones, even on Ghost Visage, even on Goose itself. Everything here is benefiting from it, so it's a great synergy. So now that we've talked about the basic attack mace build, what do you do for the bow build? Well, for the bow build I didn't use Curse of PP, which gave me 8 points to put into Explosive Arrow, which gives me tier 3 bonus. Using Explosive Arrow makes your next 3 ranged basic attacks explode for 50% weapon damage. And now I also took 4 points into Scatter Shot. And the thing is, I took 4 points from 1000 volt burst, but maybe I should have taken 4 points from Energizer and put those points there. So there's 2 options. One would be keep this level 8, keep this level 4, and this is level 6, and this is level 4, and this is level 5, and this is level 0. Or the other option is keep Energizer 10, 0 points, keep Energizer 0, 1000 volt burst 10, and PP 0 and 8 explosive arrow for scatter shot. But why 4 in scatter shot? Well, it gives you ranged basic attacks damage. And that was the first thing I tried, and then I was alright, let's see if I can use something with the maces. And you see what I've got here. Items that give me 69.6 and 78.7 bonus damage to basic attacks. And this doesn't require me to use a bow, because for example with this one is a synergy, I have to use a bow, which means I'm not using an offhand or a shield like a focus or a shield. With this one I can use a shield, have less damage, or I can use this focus, have more damage to basic attacks, and get more affixes. Even armor again, which I don't need for this build. Ideally I would get something instead of the armor again. I mean, I would prefer something like this but with a socket, and instead of armor again to give me another nice affix. But yeah, I decided to go for this for the chance to shock, because you can look at my chance to shock. It's 10% from tingling sensation, it goes to 24%. So this chance to shock gets added to a weapon. If I have a weapon with 40% chance to shock, my chance to shock would become 64. And my shock duration is 3 seconds. If I have a weapon, as I said, with 1 second, it will become 4. Now, more about gear later though, more about gear later. So I think that's it for the skills. Let's quickly talk about the Legendarium. Must have Musketeer rope here. Unless you wanna wear it, but if you wear it, you're losing the chance to get something like this with 1000 plus when wife bound physical damage. On the legs I would suggest getting, but later for the gear, again, let's go back to the Legendarium. So Skittering Shoulders is nice, but don't rely on Skittering Shoulders. They're gonna change in such a way where it will be an item you put in your skill bar. I would still consider using Skittering Shoulders instead of maybe sacrifice to Goose when that happens. When it transforms into an item that gives us an extra skill bar slot, not skill bar slot, but extra skill to put in our skill bar slot, and it no longer gets triggered by 1000 volt burst. So Infectious Shooter I would recommend a must-have, and Musketeer rope must-have, and here you could put anything. You could put a Storm Blade, you could put a Frenzy's Blade. I've got attack speed, so I'm not using the Frenzy's Blade. There's many things you can put. But yeah, Frenzy's Blade, Sneku Stick, Storm Blade are obvious choices. White Wolf's Cavebreaker is not a bad choice. You can put something else like Arc-Powered Shoulders if you're not wearing them for now, until they also become something you put in your skill bar slot. Or you can put things like Quicksilver or the Wanderer's Hood or whatever else you like. Even something for farming. You can switch between Skittering Chest, Arc Power Chest and the Woods Beast Chest for farming to keep triggering that extra gearwork. There are things to do, things to use. I'm gonna leave that slot open to your interpretation, open to your personal choices. Now let's say something about the pet skills I was using. I was using crit chance because most of my damage doesn't come from precision skills. In fact, I don't have a single precision skill, which means Ghost Visage, that 50% extra crit chance to precision skills is not good for this build. That's why using this is amazing, unless you have already reached the cap of 40% crit chance. I strongly suggest using this. Maybe if you're 5% away from the cap, it's probably not gonna be worth it just for 5%. Another thing I suggest is Healing Friendship, and then you can put things like Battle Cry or Defensive Posture, whatever you like. I like using Defensive Posture, and then I like using Immobilizing Strike to keep the enemies in place when the pet's attacking them. Although this one's also not bad. And that's pretty much it for the pet skills. I mean, you can switch to a different aura if you don't have this one. You can use that one, or that one, even that one. Next, let's talk about the gear that I suggest using for the build. And here we are at the segment where I talk about suggested items to wear and what stats to look for in each of those items. On the weapon, I would start with the weapon and tell you about the two options you've got. One option would be using a weapon with flat damage at the top, 2 times flat damage at the bottom, and a more flat damage in a socket. Another option would be a weapon with flat damage at the top, 1 time flat damage at the middle, and chance to shock for X seconds, X% chance to shock for Y seconds, maybe let's reword it like that, and then more flat damage at the bottom. This is another great choice. So you gotta decide, do I wanna trigger Lightning Strike more often for less damage, or do I wanna trigger Lightning Strike less often for more damage? Then Musketeer Cavalier Hat. Ideally you would have something that gives you crit chance, maybe something that gives you extra skill points to something, so you can to something that you have more than one skill point invested into. That means, for example, if it gives you a skill point to this or 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 this, so anything that you have more than 1 point, so not Ghost Visage and not Revolt. Anything else you can then remove some points and maybe put those into Energizer. At least 1 point you can put into Energizer. Maybe put more points into things like Goose for a little bit more damage, or maybe into Shasta. But in any case, the things I would suggest putting the points would be if you get 1 point, for Energizer, that would be nice to max it out. Alternatively, you can put points into tight grouping for the passive bonus, for the relic energy charge rate. Another option, if you get up to 4 points, that you can put those into onslaught for the damage to relic skills. Those are things I would suggest if you get extra points from the helmet. You have to wear three pieces of the Musketeer set. So which 3 pieces you would be wearing, it doesn't matter as long as one of them is the Cavalier hat. You can see mine is low level, but it's giving me evasion, crit chance and gearwork, so this one would be good enough on any level. Regardless whether it's level 1 or level 60, it would be giving me the same stats. Now, I'm using powered shoulders for now, but when they rework it to be something that gives you a skill that you can put in your skill bar, I would consider replacing it. Things to look out for in the shoulder would be crit damage, maybe damage to certain skills, or maybe you can look for shock duration. It really could help shock duration, and try to get things with defenses. I prefer defenses unless you want to stack block chance and evasion, which cap at 40% each. Which gives you 30% total chance to get hit. Unless you want to stack block chance and evasion, try to focus on defenses. Regular defense gets added to your other defenses. So if you have, for example, 2000, let's say you have 2000 lightning, and then you have 10,000 physical, your lightning would immediately become 10,000 plus 2000, which would be of course 12,000. So all of those resistances here, 16,000, 36,000, 20,000, those are with the included 14,930 from physical. So, for example, if I remove this, I have no shock. And you see my electric defense is 1500, but it immediately jumps to 16,000 because of the 14,000 there. So that's kind of how this works. So again, try to focus on defenses. Physical defense is great because it works against everything. Of course, this is level 42, so as I said, I've got a lot of low level gear that I was using, such as this or this. Then here's the gauntlets I'm using. Musketeer gloves and Musketeer boot is what I'm using, but you can try using the Musketeer shoulders. I strongly suggest do not use Musketeer rope, do not use Musketeer legs. You don't need the bonus from the legs, you don't need the bonus from the chest because you're slotting it in the Legendarium. And you can get chest armor that's blue, that gives you flat damage. And if you're lucky, it can give you additional stat that gives you crit damage, or additional stat that gives you percent damage. Percent damage, I'm trying to show you maybe what it looks like. Let's try and find something so I can quickly show you what the percent damage looks like. I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere here. Maybe I don't. Well, percent damage is just your typical X% specific type damage. It could be electric, it could be ice, it could be fire. I probably have it somewhere. So this is what it looks like. So for example, you can get flat poison and percent poison if you're lucky on an item, and if your weapon is doing poison, and then you get the same thing on the legs, flat poison and percent poison, that's very strong, because the percentages will stack, the flat damages will stack and get boosted by the percentages, and you're gonna get a lot of damage. And on the boots you can get crit damage and percent damage, you cannot get flat, whereas on the legs you can get flat damage and crit chance, but you cannot get crit damage. So you can get crit damage, flat damage percent here, you can get crit damage, crit chance percent here, and here you can get crit damage and percent damage without crit chance. Here you can get bonus damage to Mace basic attacks, which I would suggest, or bow if you're using a bow. It won't be bad. And another thing that you might consider getting is, but maybe it's gonna hurt this build, duration to Localized Storm. See, the longer the Localized Storm is, the less energy is drained and the slower your 1000 volt burst equips. And it's ready for reuse. So I'd say maybe wait and don't use this unless you really don't have other options. Because yeah, it's not bad to have duration for Localized Storm, but it's gonna result in less often using 1000-volt burst, and I think it's a pretty good burst, no pun intended there, of a skill to use. So I would focus on basic attack damage for the Mace, crit damage and some defenses, and on top I would prefer some defenses as well. Here you can get attack speed for basic attacks, maybe more damage to basic attacks for maces to get this even better, and more defenses. And here's something you might want to keep a lookout on. They're adding new sets, and those new sets would have relic synergies, and I will update my builds eventually what items I suggest using. There's probably gonna be a shoulder that lets you reset your 1000-volt burst recharge. So this one here that I get when attacking, this one, it will let you reset it, it will let you refill it. See, this one gets filled up as I use energy with Localized Storm. So there's gonna be something like a battery shoulder, whatever they call it, that lets you take a skill, put it on your skill bar, maybe replace sacrifice to Goose, and then use that skill to get full 200 relic charge. So I would consider using that, even if it's without the set bonus. So on the offhand, you can get bonus damage to basic attacks. Ideally you would get something that doesn't give you 2 times armor again only at the top, maybe something with chance to shock and bonus damage to basic attacks, and other good things such as defense, such as crit chance, crit damage, etc. Just avoid armor again, you don't need it for this build. So yeah, relic energy generation is nice. Relic energy cost reduction is probably not nice because you want to waste energy to be able to recharge 1000-volt burst quicker, unless you want to go for a build where you're maximizing the time of duration for Localized Storm. For the pet, Drat Neckband is my choice, and I like faster cooldown for pet active skill with attack speed. For the badges, for the tags, I like faster cooldown for pet active skill and attack speed for the pet. More attack speed means more healing from Drat Neckband. And here I would like to use certain pet... there are certain pet tags that I like to use, so let's show you those. I like using the rapid bartering for farming. The invigoration I like using at all times, and I like using things like the Phoenix token if I notice my pet dying, but recently I haven't been seeing my pet die much. So I would say invigoration and maybe rapid bartering, or maybe Ancient One token, or maybe even things like the Clockwork and Inferno tokens are not bad choices for the pet. Just look for the cooldown so you can get more healing, and look for attack speed so you can get even more healing from Drat Neckband. Things like Bok chance, crit damage for the pet are not bad as well. But yeah, I prioritize cooldown rather than damage and level, so I might wear a level 20-30 if it doesn't give me as much cooldown as my level 60s. So other stats to look for, gearwork is not bad, it caps at 100, so keep that in mind when mapping. Avoid health regeneration, avoid gold work. Look for relic energy cost if you want that version, or look for relic energy generation if you want that version. I prefer relic energy generation for this build. And I think we pretty much covered up all the stats. I probably missed some stats, so make sure you check the website version of the build. It should be in the description and in the comment section. And if you scroll down there, you would be able to see some information that maybe I have missed. You can get chance to shock on gauntlets, try to get it, by the way, I forgot to tell you that. Try to get chance to shock on the gauntlets, it would really help. So yeah, that's it for the gear. Let's move on to the gameplay segment where I show you how I play the build and maybe how I rotate the skills. And here we are at the gameplay segment, where I would show you a bit more footage of the build in action, although you could have seen throughout the whole video some picture-in-picture segments in the corner, but here it is in full screen, more gameplay footage to those of you who are eager to see that build in action. I'm also going to talk about how I rotate the skills, but I'm also only going to talk about the melee version. I'm not going to talk about the ranged bow basic attack setup. So basically what I do is I start with Shasta, then I do Goose, then I would do Scout's Bones, and after that I would do PP. You can do PP before Scout's Bones if you want. But yeah, that's how I do it. And right before that combo, I always lead in, if it's ready, with Localized Storm. So Localized Storm, Shasta, Scout, Goose, then Scout's Bones or PP or reverse those, and then you start doing your basic attacks. PP makes the enemies do less damage, and it stacks up to 2 times, and it keeps pulsating, so it can stack that up to 2 times, making the enemies deal 50% less damage to you. And if you have damage reduction, which you will as soon as you hit an enemy with your basic attack, the 50% fighter spirit, you can have a very good synergy between those two and good survivability. I was using very bad defenses, as you might have seen in my gear segment. You would have seen my resistances are tragic, yet I was still surviving decently well for someone that's fighting close range. I was actually very happy with the results, and eventually I will be playing this on stream once I'm done with some other builds, because it's a build I enjoy. If only it wasn't so flashy being an Electrode build. I really hope the developers would rework some of those thunders and lightnings, so it's not giving people epileptic seizures if they are suffering from that, or it's not hurting your eyes. You can see another bursty boss kill. This is actually the very first boss kill I did with the melee attack on my very first map, and I was like, wow, what the hell is this? There's something going on here. But yeah, I really love the build, and I really hope you folks would enjoy it as well. It's very out of the box, and I've been eager to try such a build for quite some time. I'd never expected it would be the Mace I like more than the bow, but yeah, I didn't have good gear for the bow based build, and it really didn't sit well with me. I tried it, I hoped for something good, but damn, this melee one is just amazing. So let me know what you think about it if you try it, and let me know if you do something differently. To get notified when I upload more content like this or similar for this game or other games like it, such as wooters of all varieties, you could subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button to not miss out on notifications, and optionally you can even join as a member of the Struck Club and get access to emotes, badges or other perks such as private tutorials and things like that. And I would like to use this part of the video to thank the people who are currently YouTube members of the Struck Club. Thank you Zedicus and Nightwolf. Thanks for watching this video, keep it cool, and until next time, Struck Club. Goodbye.